Between 1933 and 1939, Nazi racial policy became a defining feature of life in Germany, rooted in Adolf Hitler's vision of an Aryan racial state. The Nazis believed in the racial superiority of the Aryan race and sought to create a racially pure German society by oppressing, discriminating against, and ultimately eliminating those they deemed inferior or undesirable. This included not only Jewish people, but also Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, homosexuals, and other groups considered a threat to the so-called purity of the German nation. From the outset, the Nazi regime took steps to exclude and marginalize Jewish people. In 1933, shortly after Hitler came to power, the Nazis enacted a series of laws and decrees that began to systematically remove Jews from German public life. The law for the restoration of the professional civil service, passed in April 1933, excluded Jews and political opponents from civil service jobs. Jewish lawyers, doctors, and teachers were dismissed from their professions, and Jewish businesses were boycotted. The regime's anti-Jewish rhetoric and actions were relentless, with propaganda depicting Jews as enemies of the state who were responsible for Germany's problems. This campaign laid the groundwork for more extensive measures. By 1935, Nazi racial policy took a more formal and legally entrenched form with the enactment of the Nuremberg Laws. These laws were designed to legally define and isolate Jews from the rest of German society. The Reich citizenship law stripped Jews of their German citizenship, reducing them to the status of subjects with no political rights. The law for the protection of German blood and honor prohibited marriages and sexual relations between Jews and non-Jews, and any existing marriages were annulled. The laws were accompanied by a series of decrees that further defined who was considered Jewish, based on the number of Jewish grandparents a person had, regardless of their religious beliefs or cultural identity. These laws made Jewish identity a matter of racial determination rather than religious practice, and established a legal basis for the discrimination, exclusion, and eventual persecution of Jews in all areas of German life. Over time, more restrictions were imposed, including bans on Jewish ownership of businesses, restrictions on where Jews could live and work, and even requirements that Jews carry identification cards and wear the Star of David in public. The most violent expression of Nazi racial policy before World War II came with the events of Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass, on November 9–10, 1938. Kristallnacht was a coordinated attack on Jewish people, synagogues, homes and businesses across Germany and Austria, carried out by Nazi paramilitary forces and civilians. The pretext for this widespread violence was the assassination of a German diplomat, Ernst vom Rath, by a young Polish Jew in Paris, which the Nazis seized upon as an excuse to launch a nationwide pogrom. On the night of November 9th, synagogues were set ablaze, Jewish businesses were looted and destroyed, and Jewish homes were vandalized. The streets were littered with broken glass from shattered windows, giving the event its name, Night of the Broken Glass. Approximately 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to concentration camps such as Dachau, Buchenwald, and Sachsenhausen, where many were subjected to brutal treatment. Kristallnacht marked a significant escalation in Nazi persecution of Jews, moving from social exclusion and legal discrimination to widespread state-sponsored violence. It shattered any remaining illusion that Jews could coexist in Nazi Germany, signaling a shift towards more radical and violent measures that would culminate in the Holocaust. After Kristallnacht, Jewish people were subjected to even harsher measures, including fines imposed on the Jewish community to pay for the damage inflicted during the pogrom, and a further tightening of restrictions on their rights, movements, and economic activities. Jewish children were expelled from public schools, and Jews were barred from most public places, effectively isolating them from society. Nazi racial policy between 1933 and 1939 systematically stripped Jewish people and other groups of their rights, livelihoods, and dignity. Through a combination of oppressive laws, propaganda, social ostracization, and violent acts such as Kristallnacht, the Nazis set the stage for the Holocaust. The years leading up to the war saw the entrenchment of a racial hierarchy enforced by law and violence, which increasingly marginalized, terrorized, and dehumanized Jewish people and other targeted groups. This period was marked by a relentless pursuit of racial purity that would eventually lead to genocide and the systematic murder of 6 million Jews during World War II.